Good evening, dear friends. Every gathering of people, especially every gathering of Baha'is, has a spirit which animates its proceedings. In many ways, the animating spirit of this International Youth Conference is the manner in which the Baha'i youth in Iran have responded to the challenges put before them. Since the Islamic Revolution in Iran, the condition of the Baha'i community has been that of complete oppression. The Baha'i community of Iran has been denied all its human rights. It has lost its most precious members, many of whom have been killed, hundreds of whom are in prison, thousands and thousands who have lost all their jobs, livelihoods, and belongings, hundreds and hundreds who have become refugees outside of their lands, and thousands who are refugees within their own homeland. This drama is not yet completely finished, nor is extent of hardship and adversity is really known by the Baha'is, let alone the non-Baha'i community in the world. However, this story is not a new story for the Baha'is of Iran. This is a story that began in 1844 and it has continued to this day. But this time, a new dimension or several new dimensions have been added to the atrocities that are experienced by the Baha'is in Iran. Yes, in the course of the Baha'i history, since 1844, some 24,000 individuals have been martyred. But many of them, most of them, were men. But this time, women have been in the forefront in their martyrdom, in their defense of the faith. When we speak of martyrdom, one should realize that the Baha'is are not kind of fanatical group who seek martyrdom. Baha'is have been told by Baha'u'llah that their main objective in life is to serve humanity, to be the cause of oneness of mankind, the progress of civilization, the establishment of the universal peace. These are the objectives for which Baha'is live. But you see, any time that humanity or an individual is faced with a challenge, then there should be willingness to sacrifice in such manner that is equivalent to that challenge, equals that challenge. Today in the world, we have a very unusual circumstances. Masses of humanity are in a state of poverty, disease, and oppression. The leaders of mankind have began to view humanity, to view mankind as nothing more than animals. The books that you read, the theories that are espoused, the ideas that are given to us, all of them invite us to accept that we are animals who are governed by the laws of competition, of self-interest, of greed, of materialism, of wanting and wanting and wanting. This is the prevailing concept that is everywhere in the world today. In the midst of this condition comes Baha'u'llah, who says, no, man is not an animal. The human beings are created noble beings. And this nobility has to come to fruition. So when you want to establish nobility, when you want to establish that humanity is basically peaceful and loving and not aggressive and full of hate, when you want to do that, then you have to be willing to stand behind those principles. From a Baha'i perspective, the messenger of God for today, the manifestation of God for today, the message of God for humanity today is that mankind finally has reached to that level that should accept the responsibility to showing forth its own nobility. Therefore, when the Baha'is are confronted by injustice, are confronted by tremendous atrocities that are put upon them in the lands of the birth of the faith, they do not respond with aggression. They do not respond with violence. They do not respond with subversion, but rather they respond with an eloquence of logic, of reasoning, of a conduct, of a behavior, of a mode of interaction that would show to those who are acting as they are that indeed you can see the signs of nobility of a human being at all levels, under all conditions. And if proving that nobility requires that you give your life, you will give your life, because once and for all mankind has to accept its high destiny. So the martyrdom of the Baha'i is the martyrdom for the cause of the glorification of human race. And this is the session that is dedicated to this point. The chairperson of this conference, this session of the conference, is Colonel Hatcher.
Rouhi Jahanpur was born in Shiraz. She received her degree in chemistry at the University of Shiraz. She was sent to prison on 2 occasions in 1982 for a period of 19 days.
To this point, the chairperson of this conference, this session of the conference, is Colonel Hatcher. And this is the session that is dedicated to this point. The chairperson of this conference, this session of the conference, is Carmel Hatcher.
Rouhi Jahanpur was born in Shiraz. She received her degree in chemistry at the University of Shiraz. She was sent to prison on 2 occasions. First in February 1982 for a period of 19 days. Secondly in November 1982 for 2 months. The second time she was imprisoned with 10 Baha'i women who were consequently put to death. 3 months earlier, another Baha'i woman had been executed. Herself, during these 2 imprisonments, had been tortured. Today she lives in Canada with her mother and her sister. Let's welcome Rouhi Jahanpur.
Allah. I would like to start by offering my sincere thanks to the International Youth Conference for giving me this opportunity to share some of my memories of our beloved young martyrs of Iran. Some of those who were imprisoned with me in Shiraz and whose friendship was a great privilege to this unfortunate soul. Although I feel inadequate to recount their acts of faithfulness, it is a very special honor for me to speak of them in this momentous gathering. I would like to begin by reading the passage of Baha'u'llah from the Hidden Words, since each and every of these martyrs was a shining example of it. O Son of Justice, whither can a lover go but to the land of his beloved? And what seeker findeth rest away from his heart's desire? To the true lover, reunion is life and separation is death. His breast is void of patience, and his heart hath no peace. A myriad lives he would forsake to hasten to the abode of his beloved. Since this is a youth conference, I want to tell you about the young lovers of the city of Shiraz. I will try my best to tell you of their self-sacrifices, their self-effacement, and even of the last beats of their pure hearts as they walk the path of martyrdom. I will start by telling you about the youngest and loveliest martyr of Iran, Mona Mahmoud-Nejad, that she was only 16 years old and still a high school student. Because she was a Baha'i, they prevented her from attending school, unaware of the fact that they were really entering her into the school of the love of Baha. Sparks of love within her soon turned into the flaming fire that led her singing and smiling to the field of martyrdom. My first memory of Mona, on which indicates her love for serving the faith, goes back to when she was 14. While I was serving on the Baha'i Committee Education of Shiraz, we received a request from Mona to serve on one of our subcommittees. Since she had not reached the legal age to be enrolled as a Baha'i, her request was turned down due to a specific instruction of the Assembly of Shiraz. When she was informed of the decision, she burst into tears and cried bitterly. But later, when she turned 15 and enrolled, she applied again. This time, she was immediately accepted and assigned to a committee. It was only a few months later that Mona and her father arrested in their house by a group of revolutionary guards who searched their house and confiscated all the Baha'i pictures and books they could find. That night, Mona was the first of several Baha'i women who were brought to jail. Later, when she related the events of that night, she said, "My mother was very anxious and troubled about her arrest and asked one of the guards, 'Why are you taking my 16-year-old daughter?' And he said, 'What a silly question, because she will soon be a great promoter of the Baha'i faith.' Then she told me, in contrast to my mother, my father was very calm. Just before we left, he held my hand and pointed to the guard, saying to my mother, 'Don't worry, these are my sons and Mona's brother.' Then we said goodbye and were taken to the prison. Mona was very beautiful and had a lovely voice. She used to chant the prayers and writings in a moving way. Even the Islamic judge at her trial had heard about her voice and asked her to chant something for him in the trial. Mona replied, "I can't do it in this way." The judge asked her, "Why? What do you mean?" And Mona pointed out, "You would have to sit respectfully with your hands folded on your chest before I could read anything." At first the judge refused, but after a while, as though spellbound by her spiritual character, he complied with her wish. When Mona had finished reciting a short prayer in a simple voice, the puzzled judge asked her, "Why did you not sing it?" Mona replied, "I only chant for my heart, and when I am alone, not in front of you." Mona had a truly pure heart. A few months before her arrest, she had an amazing dream that she shared with me when we were in prison. When she talked about the dream, she became very excited, as though she were experiencing it again. And this is her dream. She saw herself in a room decorated all in blue, and suddenly Baha'u'llah himself entered the room and took some boxes out of a dresser, saying, "Mona, we know which one of these you will choose, but we want to hear from your own mouth." "Of course," he went on, "we have also made a selection for you." Then he opened the first box and took a very beautiful decorated red case of the box and put it on Mona with his blessed hand and buttoned it and asked Mona, "Do you like it?" Mona asked, "It is beautiful, but what is the meaning of this?" Baha'u'llah said, "This is a robe of martyrdom." Mona said, "It is beautiful, but I don't like martyrdom and I don't wish to be a martyr. Put it into its box and opened another box and took out another decorated, beautiful black cape and put it on Mona again with his blessed hands, and this time again asked Mona, do you like it? And Mona said, it is beautiful, but what is the meaning of this? Baha'u'llah said, this is a robe of sorrow. Mona said, although it is also beautiful, but I don't like sorrow. Once again, Baha'u'llah took the cape off, put it back into its box and opened another one. This time he took out a blue cape and put it on Mona, who once again asked Baha'u'llah its meaning. He replied that this was the robe of service. Mona cheerfully said, yes, I like this one the best. I love to serve and I chose this one. At that moment, Baha'u'llah stood next to Mona and called for someone named Mr. Mehdi to join them for a group photograph. At that moment, Mona woke up and couldn't go back to sleep for the rest of the night. In the morning, when she told her father about the dream and asked who this Mr. Mehdi was, her father brought out a picture of an earlier martyr, Mr. Mehdi Anwari, and showed it to her. To her surprise, she found them to be one and the same. When Mona told me of this dream in prison, I teased her, saying, how did you dare tell Baha'u'llah that you like this one or don't like that one? Although she may not have been ready for martyrdom in the beginning, but Mona's imprisonment had a dramatic effect on her spirit. This effect was so strong that on several occasions she showed her mother how she was going to march to the field of martyrdom and how she would kiss the hanging nose. Mona had another beautiful dream while in prison. She saw herself in the presence of Abdul Baha, pleading and saying, the friends are worried. Please grant us steadfastness so we can endure. And Abdul Baha smiled, saying, be confident, Mona. We have granted it. Abdul Baha repeated this same phrase 3 times. Mona loved her father dearly. She always used to say, I'm afraid they will kill my father first, and I couldn't bear that. But as she had feared, her father was martyred 3 months before her. She herself was hanged along with 9 other Baha'i women on June 18, 1983. Mona had told her mother during their last visit, tonight we are going to the presence of the Blessed Beauty. The courage and spirit of Mona's mother after the execution of her husband and daughter amazed everyone. After Mona's execution, she visited the morgue, kissed Mona's face twice, as well as other martyrs. Later, she reported that they all had a serene look and a smile on their faces. She said that the faces of some were badly injured, apparently due to having been dragged on the ground after the execution. After Mona, I would like to tell you of another Baha'i martyr of Shiraz, Hidayat Siyavashi. But first, I would like to quote a sentence from a recent message of the Universal House of Justice addressed to the youth throughout the world, so you can see for yourself how Hidayat was an example of it. Recent martyrdom, courageous, steadfast youth in Shiraz, scene inauguration, mission, martyr, prophet, reminiscent act, valor, youthful, immortal, heroic age. When we all hear the Bab's name, we automatically picture those spirited youth at his time, who cherish no desire in their hearts except that of offering their lives in the path of their beloved. Among them we recall Quddus, who at the scene of his martyrdom wished his mother to be present to witness what he called his marriage ceremony. A century had passed, and now a whole generation of youth who have learned about such tales of devotion only through the pages of history become the very players in this same historic drama. Hidayat was 20 years old, single, and the only son to his parents. When they expressed the hope that he would get married, he always used to say, "There is a time for everything." He was born to a devoted Baha'i family in Jordan. Later, they moved to Iran and resided as pioneers in Yazd and Kermanshah. Their house was always a center of Baha'i hospitality, service, and fireside. This fact was later listed as one of the criminal charges against him at his trial. Hidayat finished his education in Shiraz and pioneered to a nearby town. Soon, other youth from Shiraz followed his footsteps and a local assembly was formed in that town. However, after the revolution, pressures of religious prejudice and persecution forced him to return to Shiraz. It didn't take him long to resume his activities again. Once again, his home became the center of various Baha'i community services, as well as housing the local community files and documents. After his martyrdom, the paper said that his house was a Baha'i center and a storehouse of Baha'i materials. At first, he was a member of several service committees, but later became an assembly member. He was extremely kind and would always do his utmost to help those in distress. In fact, the night he was arrested, he had gone out to help the family of one of the earlier martyrs. It was on his way back that Hidayat and two other Baha'i youth accompanying him were stopped by the revolutionary guards. They were arrested automatically when it became known that they were Baha'is. That night, they were first taken to prison and severely beaten to make them recant their faith. Eventually, around 4 a.m., when none of them recanted, the guards, frustrated by their lack of success, took Hidayat to his house for further investigation. His mother, anxious and fearful, opened the door. When Hidayat saw the puzzled look on his mother's face, he assured her very calmly, saying, "Don't worry, mother. They have only come to search the house." The search resulted in an accumulation of piles of Baha'i books as the so-called evidence of their allegations. His trial didn't last more than a few minutes. The religious judge asked Hidayat, "Are you Baha'i?" Hidayat said, "Yes." Judge asked, "Will you convert to Islam?" Hidayat said, "No." Judge asked again. Hidayat said, "No." Then he pronounced his death sentence and said, "Not only will we kill you, but we will kill all the Baha'is. Only we will do it one at a time, so all other countries will not raise their voices in protest." Hidayat asked in return, "Assuming you do eliminate all the Baha'is in Iran, what can you do about the rest of the Baha'is in the world?" The judge answered, "We have plans for them too." Hidayat's mother, who was a perfect example of steadfastness and devotion, always used to say that during their visiting hours, it's better to say during visiting minutes, their conversation was only about steadfastness and firmness in the cause. Hidayat would tell her, "I am firm, so you should be too. Don't concern yourself, mother. Whatever happens is the will of God and best for everyone." His spiritual character and kindness had even affected the prison guards. This reminds me of another incident which occurred while he was in prison. One day, the prison guards decided to auction the fruit which prisoners had grown in the yard for the benefit of the prison house. To the surprise of them all, Hidayat and Dr. Ahari, who later became a martyr in Shiraz, purchased most of them. The guards were very pleased by this action and rewarded them with a private visit with their two families. For a long time, Hidayat felt in his heart that martyrdom was destined for him. This was mostly because of a dream he had after he played an important role in the burial ceremony of 3 earlier martyrs in Shiraz. He had dreamed that Mr. Wahdat, one of the 3 martyrs, came back to visit him, kissing him and taking his hand. The next morning, he told his parents about the dream and said it is a sign that he was destined to be a martyr. I recall another incident in the prison which shows his intense desire and longing for the fulfillment of his destiny. When they called Dr. Ahari, one of his cellmates, for execution, Hidayat embraced Dr. Ahari very tightly, saying, "It is finally our turn." But when the guards appeared, they separated them, taking only Dr. Ahari. And Hidayat smiled sadly and said, "It appears as though one must have connections even with God to take Act's youth seriously." But in his heart, he was confident that his name would also be called very soon. His mother had mentioned that Hidayat had sent all his clothes and personal belongings home, saying, "There is no need for this here any longer." One night, one of his Baha'i cellmates dreamed that Baha'u'llah entered their cell, carrying a red flower in his hand and saying, "I have brought this flower for one of you." In the morning, when he related his dream to the other prisoners, they all looked at each other, wondering whose turn it would be that day. Except for Hidayat, who laughed and said, "Now it is my turn." And indeed, that afternoon, Hidayat was busy cleaning and sweeping the stairs and hallways as a part of his prison duties. And when he heard his name on the prison loudspeaker, a silence overtook the prison. Hidayat returned to his cell and said goodbye to his friends. Another youth who had been arrested at the same time threw himself at Hidayat's feet and cried bitterly, "We were brought together and we should live together." Eventually, they were separated with difficulty by one of the guards. Hidayat was so popular among all the prisoners that when he was taken out of his cell and into the hallways, all the other prisoners on various levels of the building gathered outside, saying his name, waving at him, and for several times repeating his name. The prison officers had to warn everyone over the loudspeakers. To the prisoners to be quiet and return to their cells. But they ignored the order. First he was led to the prison office for a few minutes and then returned back to his cell. His sense of humor and firmness didn't waver to the last minute. He laughed and said, "Let's have one more cup of tea before I leave." Then, turning to his Baha'i friends, he said, "By the way, does anyone have any message for Baha'u'llah?" Zarin Moghini was another martyr. I knew Zarin from the first day of her arrival in Shiraz, when her family moved to a house near Bab's house. Her Baha'i service in Shiraz also started from that day. She was a member of different committees, such as Youth Committee, Discipline Committee, and the University Committee. She also taught Baha'i children's classes, and her classes was the best one in Shiraz. In fact, if we wanted to find an example of cheerfulness, zeal and devotion, she would be the one. She loved teaching the faith, and her home was always given over to the service of the faith. She was always looking for opportunities to teach the faith, and because of her fine education and charming speech, she was very successful at it. Even when she was in prison, she often had religious discussions with her interrogator. Now I would like to tell you a little bit about his interrogations. For this for many hours, sometimes more than 12 hours. I remember on one occasion when I was brought back to myself from one of these lengthy sessions, I couldn't figure out for a long time whether it was morning or night. Anyway, Zareen herself told me that because she was blindfolded during her interrogations, she couldn't see who was present in the room. But at the end of each session, she could tell by the sound of chairs that there had been many people in the room. On one occasion, she recalled how the interrogator and several others had a lengthy discussion about religion with her, and when they found themselves incapable of arguing with her decisive answer, into tears, saying, "Whether you accept it or not, I am a Baha'i, and you can never take it away from me. I am a Baha'i with all my heart and being." It was due to such charisma that her interrogator once told her, "They should have given you a degree in public speaking instead of literature." In prison, she was always a solace to all the other prisoners. She used to say, "Martyrdom is not a gift that is given to just anyone. One must yearn for it in one's heart." And indeed, she was telling the truth, for she herself yearned for such a strength from the bottom of her heart. Zareen was arrested with her father and mother at midnight on October 23, 1982. Her mother was released very soon, but her father is still in prison today. She was martyred on June 18, 1983, along with 9 other Baha'i women. Zareen had written many beautiful articles, and I would like to read you a part of something she wrote herself so you can better understand her feeling. But before I read it, I should tell you about the circumstances in which it was written. When Zareen was a member of the youth committee, during one of the meetings, the telephone rang and one of the committee members was summoned immediately to the prison to visit his father for one last time. He rushed to the prison with his family and found his father waiting to say goodbye. His father said, "This is our last visit, and I will now leave you all for the abode of my beloved." So they embraced each other one last time, and after the visit was over, with utmost firmness and calm, the son took the rest of the family home and returned to the committee meeting, which was still going on. After hearing what had happened, the meeting adjourned with prayers and meditations. Zareen, who was recording the minutes, wrote the following. The 88th meeting of the youth committee started with a prayer at 5:15 p.m. This 88th meeting on March 17, 1981 had the undeserved privilege of entering into the heart of history and beholding its crimson beat. If we bowed our heads in thanksgiving at the exalted threshold of His glory for the rest of our lives, and if every atom of our being resounded with praise and gratitude, we can never be deserving of such an honor. What made these mere specks of dust, these insignificant beings, these broken winged birds in the swamp of idle fancies and vain imagining, so deserving as to be allowed by the blessed beauty to witness a glimpse of the glory of the greatest event in history? It was as though the dwellers of the unseen kingdom were taking hold of our hands and separating us from our administrative involvements, which in our thoughtless mind had appeared as a form of service. It was as if they were whispering in our ears, "Now, behold the glory of the ancient beauty, the essence of service, the meaning of steadfastness, courage, heroism, and at last behold martyrdom." Oh my God, how could this be true? I had only heard of such acts of self-sacrifice through the historic tales of Nabi. I had always thought that to understand the meaning of martyrdom meant traveling 137 years backward in time. And then suddenly he ordained otherwise, and I witnessed the mystery of sacrifice. The 88th meeting of the Youth Committee had the honor of having the son of a martyr in its midst. These events ought to be recorded with a crimson pen and inscribed in the golden pages of history. The 88th meeting of the Youth Committee never really ended. In fact, it was only the beginning for this new generation of Baha'is who had heard of the grandeur of the cause of Baha'u'llah but had not seen it. A generation who had read the legends of sacrifice but had not touched them. It was a beginning for the future generation of Baha'is who would read about these illustrious martyrs of Shiraz and learn that no water can put out the flame of his love, that no tempest can extinguish the fire of his affection. Another martyr of Shiraz was my very dear friend, Shaheen Dalband, with whom I had spent most of my time during the few years before our imprisonment. Everyone used to call her Shireen, which means sweet. She had a very innocent, shy, and kindly face. She was also talented and intelligent, a graduate in sociology from the University of Shiraz. One of her professors said that Shireen's thesis for graduation had been so outstanding that other professors frequently quoted from it. Although they knew that she was a Baha'i, they often singled her out as one of their exceptional students. Shireen and I began our administrative service at the same time. First, we were both members of the teaching committees and then youth events committee. Then we served on the Children's and Baha'i Education Committee for several years. Later, Shireen became a member of the youth committee and was devoted to it. She loved her activities in the faith so much that no matter how much her family and friends insisted that she leave Shiraz, she wouldn't do so. Her family was living in England at that time, and she lived alone with her grandparents in Shiraz. She continued to serve on various committees until her last days. I remember the one time she expressed the wish to be in England when her father wrote her about the visit of Hand of God, Rouhi Khanum. With tears in her eyes, she said, "How lucky for my family. I wish I were in England now, Rouhi, so I could visit with Rouhi Khanum too." She was in love with nature, especially flowers, and she always used to keep flowers in her room and used to say, "Flowers are a sign of purity." She also loved the sea very much, and we used to go to the beach together every Friday. Her love for handicrafts and paintings, especially traditional Persian miniatures, was an obvious sign of her interest in old Persia. For a long time, we both had intuitions about being arrested and even talked about it. I remember once joking to her, "We should always put on our warm-ups when we are at home, so we'll be ready when they come to take us." On the day of our arrest, November 29, 1982, she came to my home around lunchtime and we spent a few hours together. Later, we decided to visit the family of one of the Baha'i prisoners. All afternoon we talked only about the prison, and Shirin seemed unusually calm and quiet. Towards evening, as we were returning home, she was followed by a revolutionary guard. We didn't think much of it since it was such a common occurrence. That evening, as we sat together, we started knitting, and I suddenly said to Shirin, "I hope we won't have to finish our knitting in the prison." She was noticeably impatient that night and put aside her knitting. At one point she said, "I am tired. We had better go to sleep." It was after 11 o'clock at night when our doorbell rang. Shirin, my sister, and I all got up together and said, "They have come for us." Without any hesitation, I took hold of Abdul Baha's picture, kissed it and said, "Please help us, Abdul Baha." Then I gave it to Shirin and she did the same. I felt quite relaxed after that. It was my father who opened the door. 7 or 8 guards entered the house and searched all the rooms. They put us each in separate rooms and started questioning us individually. The first question was, "Are you Baha'i?" When we said yes, they asked, "Will you convert to Islam?" We said, "No, we will not lie about our faith." After a while, the guard who was questioning Shirin came out of the room she was in. Through the doorway, I could see by her tearful eyes that she was trying to let me know that they were taking her away. I smiled at her and said, "Me too." A smile appeared on her innocent face when she understood that she was not alone. It took the guards about 2 hours to search the house and gather up all our Baha'i books and pictures. Then they told Shirin and me to go with them to prison. We took a few of our personal belongings and said goodbye to my family. Shirin asked my sister to kiss her grandmother for her and tell her family not to worry about her. She also took off her jewelry and left it with my sister. It was as if she knew that she would not be coming back. My mother was especially distressed by Shirin's arrest and kept pleading with the guards not to take her away, since she was a guest in our house. But the guards didn't pay any attention and only replied, "Her name is on the list, therefore she must come with us." Then my mother asked if she could chant a prayer before they took us. They agreed, and we all stood by while she recited it. There was a silence and a special atmosphere in the room. After that, I embraced my mother and told her, "Don't worry." I said, "We should be confident that not even a leaf falls from a tree unless it be by the will of God." My father was very calm. He even made some tea and offered it to the guards. However, since they considered Baha'is to be unclean in Persian najas, they refused the offer. After we reached the prison, we were searched and files were made on us. It was around 3 o'clock in the morning when we were taken to the cell. The first person to greet us there was Mrs. Eshaqi, who embraced and welcomed us. Shirin and I couldn't sleep anymore and talked the rest of the night. She was terribly worried about her grandparents. She said, "In a way, I am glad they arrested me in your home, because I would never have been able to say goodbye to my poor grandmother. But I wish I could have said goodbye to her the way I wanted to." Shirin's birthday coincided with the Visitors' Day on Saturday. That day, she was extremely sad and seemed immersed in thoughts of her family. She was a very sensitive girl, so much so that she had kept all the birthday cards her family had ever sent her. Every year on her birthday, she would look at the cards and recall her past memories. That day, she did the same thing, walking up and down the hallway of our cell, which was only about 3 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. That evening, when they delivered our packages, Shirin was surprised to receive a new towel and a dress from her grandmother. She cried bitterly that night and was missing her family, especially her mother, terribly. That night, she was under terrible pressure. She held my hands as we lay in bed and said, "Mother, Mother, I heard her voice, Rouhi. I'm not mistaken. I'm sure it was her voice." I gripped her hand tightly and held her head against me. We cried together for a long time. Shirin was taken for interrogation on several successive days, along with other dear Baha'i friends. Each time they would keep her for many hours. She said that between the questionings, whenever there was an opportunity, she would recite this prayer by Abdul Baha and ask for help. He is the all-glorious, O my beloved Baha. Grant us thine assistance and thy confirmation. We are grieved thou art the sea of fire. We are withered, thou art the life-giving breath. During one of these interrogations, she was asked how far she would go to resist recanting her Baha'i faith. She replied, even to my execution. I hope that God will be merciful to me and cause me to remain steadfast to the last breath of my life. That day she held my hands gleefully when she returned to our cell and said to me, I have done well. Let them understand that not everybody is worthy of martyrdom. It is only through the blessing of Baha'u'llah that one becomes a martyr. Shirin, along with 9 other Baha'i women, was martyred after 6 months and 90 days of imprisonment. After their execution, Shirin's grandmother returned to the prison to claim her personal belongings. She was given only her watch, which was still working. Overcome with emotion, she burst into tears. An old man noticed her and tried to console her. He was the driver of the bus that had taken them all to the place of the execution. He told her they were all in such high spirits and sang so many songs together on the way that I thought they probably didn't know that they were being taken to be executed. I have never seen people in such high spirits. This has been a brief recollection of some of my memories about these dear ones. May the pure spirits assist us in our services to His blessed threshold. In closing, I would like to chant a prayer for you that Shirin loved it very much. And may I thank you for listening so patiently and urge you all to read the beautiful message that the Universal House of Justice has sent to you, the Baha'i youth of the world, about the meaning and wonder of this act of courage and valor. Thank you. ای جان فشان یار بینشان هزار عارفان در جستجوی او ولی محروم و مهجور از روی او اما تو یافتی تو شناختی تو نرد محبت باختی و علم فوز و فلاح برافراختی و کار خود ساختی طرف حکایتی و غریب بشارتی آنان که جستند نیافتند و آنان که نشستند یافتند استغفرالله جستجویشان جستجوی سیراب بود نه تشنگان و طلبشان طلب عاقلان بود عاشقان عاقلان خوشچین از سر لیلی غافلند کین کرامت نیست جز مجنون خرمنسوز را عاشق نشسته به از عاقل متحرک والبها علیکین.
Send your love to me every precious
As you know, in the Baha'i faith, Baha'u'llah says that joy and sorrow always come together. And he said we should not be grieved by the adversities of this life, because these adversities are indeed the manifest sign of hidden joys and bounties. And on many occasions, Baha'u'llah and Abdul Baha in their writings have referred to this. So we have been very fortunate to have with us here a Baha'i from Iran with magnificent voice. This is Ahdiya. And Mrs. Ahdiya is going to sing in Persian language one of the most joyful songs by Abdul Baha, Ey Cheshme to Roshan, which is a song that really gives, it's very difficult to translate the equivalent of it into English, except that it conveys a time when you are the most happy and the most joyous. So, this is that.
به بازار درآمد.
In order for us to fully respond to the message of the Universal House of Justice that was sent to this conference, we have decided that that message would be read every day. And I have asked one of the distinguished youths of Canada to read that message, Mr. Lloyd Gardner.
Could anyone loan me a pair of glasses that will see through tears? To the Baha'i Youth Conference in London, Ontario, we hail with joy and hope the ennobling purposes of your conference in London, Ontario. You are gathered at a moment which resounds with the significances and challenges posed by the world-shaking events enveloping the community of the greatest name in Baha'u'llah's native land. The outpouring grace providentially vouchsafed the onward march of our holy cause as a consequence of these events is clearly evident. Our hearts leap at the innumerable immediate opportunities for the further unfoldment of the order of Baha'u'llah, to which undoubtedly you can and will apply your abundant talent, your yes for action, and above all, the enthusiasm of your devotion. Surely you will see that the heroic deeds of sacrifice on the part of your Iranian brethren are matched with corresponding efforts on your part in the vast fields of teaching and service lying open before you. The exhortations especially addressed to youth by our beloved Master and the galvanizing even more loudly in your hearts now. Indeed, we will pray ardently at the holy shrines that you may realize in your lives the ideals they so persistently upheld, that you may thus acquire both inner and outer perfections as you increase your study of the heavenly writings, strive towards excellence in the sciences, and arise and become known for your independence of spirit, your knowledge, and your self-control. May you, as Abdu'l-Baha wished, be first among the pure, the free, and the wise. Universal House of Justice.